guys, welcome back to Room 237 as I continue my marathon of Italian horror and Giallo films. Now, in my last video, I said I had around a dozen or so Gialli left to get to, or I had 8 left to get to, then I was going to do all the Argento films that I haven't got to yet. Sort of like a mini Argento-thon as like a finale to all of this. Because of the many Italian films I've done in the last 3.5 months, I haven't done one Argento film. Since the beginning, that's kind of been my plan. But I had some extra time tonight, and I'm waiting on all the other Gialli to come in. I'm all caught up. And since this is my 75th Giallo review, I figured why not do something special. Do at least one Argento film a little early. And why not do the one that I wanted to see the most? It is 1971's Four Flies on Grey Velvet. Now, of course, this is the third and final film in his Animal trilogy, which is just a trilogy, kind of like the few duologies I've done. The films aren't connected, just the titles and I guess themes. And it came out the same year as Cat o' Nine Tails, which I do have. I've had it for probably over around a decade. I had it back when I did my first Italian run through. For whatever reason, I just forgot to get around to it. And Bird with the Crystal Plumage, which is still a top 10 Giallo of mine. So this was one of the first ones I got for this marathon, and I actually didn't think I was going to be able to get it. I had to get this off eBay because this has always been kind of hard to find. It was considered lost because it wasn't released on DVD until 2009. Even then, I think many versions are out of print. This is by MYA Communications Film, which they also have a release of Scorpion with Two Tails and Human Cobras, both of which I need to get. They're kind of hard to find as well. I know Shameless put this out, and I know it had a regular release in Germany, but I don't know how big of a release this did get. So yeah, I was actually lucky enough to find this for a decent price on eBay. I've seen it go for quite a bit. Yeah, and this is uncut. It's a region 0, which means it'll play anywhere. And it was written by Argento, but the story is by him, Luigi Cozzi, and Mario Foglietti. Stars Michael Brandon, Mimsy Farmer of Perfume of the Lady in Black and Autopsy, among others. Jean-Pierre Mariel, Francine Ricchetti, who I guess was or is married to Donald Sutherland, so that's pretty cool, and Bud Spencer. And the music was by Ennio Morricone. It does run at 105 minutes. At least that's what this says. This says 102, and that is uncut. And in the beginning, there is a disclaimer that says there was a couple dialogue scenes that were never dubbed, left in Italian. Subtitles come up automatically. I only really remember that at the end, during the exposition of the killer, which I will say I did not see. The reveal I did not see coming. I did not think the killer was going to be this person. And I will say, it's definitely weaker. It's not, well, I don't want to say weaker, because I did like it. It's not as strong as Bird of Crystal Plumage and Deep Red, of course, two of the best Gialli there are. I don't remember Cat o' Nine Tails enough to really say. I think it got kind of lukewarm reviews. The script is rather weak. The script is pretty, you know, there. The acting, especially for the lead, Michael Brandon, he's pretty dry and dull. I would say um, Mimsy Farmer did do a good performance. The guy that played God, his name's Godfrey, but they call him God, played by Bud Spencer. I thought he did okay. He reminded me of the groundskeeper from Pieces. The music, a lot of the music is kind of what you would come to expect later on for Argento. This very kind of zany, bombastic kind of music that Goblin would do. But then there's other pieces, like what's used for the final slow motion shot, or some of the more quieter pieces really help the suspense. And people can say what they want about Argento now or since the early 2000s, but even with all this movie's flaws, there are some stuff in this movie that just make Argento great. Even if it's in a not as good movie, there's some kill scenes that you know this movie does have style, and it has scenes that really know how to build a suspense. One of which is deals with the same victim. This long stretch of suspense building, and then a great stylized kill that we would all come to know Argento for. And yeah, there is some a ridiculousness in this. I mean, the people that have seen it know about the optometry thing about trying to photograph the last, supposedly when someone dies, according to this, for so many hours or just in general, the retina will hold the last image the eyeball saw. So they try to rip that photograph from the retina of this victim. And yeah, it looks really sciencey. I mean, they make it look kind of cool with the red laser and all the orbs, but the idea is pretty fantastic, and Argento wasn't even a fan of that. He didn't want to use it. I will say that kind of I don't want to say stops the film or takes you out of it, but it does kind of just, because everything's been, his Giallo are pretty grounded. I mean, obviously it's not as fantastic as like Phenomena, but for as dry of a movie this is, I think dry is a fair word. When that comes in, it's pretty left field. And I keep thinking that's like an apple or something. It's actually supposed to be like, if you can see this smile there, it's actually a tan sort of round smiley face mask that the way it's shot is actually pretty eerie. So the story is Michael Brandon plays a drummer for this band, and one night he's followed by a sunglass wearing, jacket wearing stalker. They end up in this theater, which when he goes in, I read, someone wrote, he spreads the red curtain and walks in, and then there's the altercation between him and the stalker. It's as if he's opening the curtain on the story, which Argento would also do similarly with Deep Red in opera. I thought that was an interesting take. And the killer has a switchblade, there's a scuffle, and Roberto is his name, accidentally stabs the guy. Then he knows up in the balcony there's someone wearing this mask and snapping photos of him, which is like an upward shot. So it's like kind of like this weird slanty angle. And just with that mask and the darkness around him, it works. It's a very creepy shot. And from there, he gets threatening phone calls, letters, photographs, of him. And he's being stalked. Also, right after that, there's like a scene with a party with his friends. One guy shares a history lesson about this one civilization that would do public executions where someone would get a stiletto in the throat and then decapitated. That's kind of a recurring theme. He keeps having a dream of that moment. Each time we see it, the sword gets a little closer. Finally, he starts to think it's like an omen or a premonition of himself. But, yeah, there are some good twists and turns. There's not really a red herring, and actually, it feels a bit more like, to an extent, for a while, it does kind of feel more like Cape Fear than it does a regular Giallo. Because Roberto isn't really picking up the pieces, looking at them. He's not really doing any sleuthing. At one point, he even hires a PI who, I guess it was a thing to have at least one gay character. It wasn't in all of them, but I noticed whenever they do put a gay character in Giallo back then, they were always super flamboyant. It's the PI in this, which I think his name was Arosio. Gianni Arosio, played by Jean-Pierre Mariel. He hires the PI, and for a while we followed the PI around. But even then, there's not a lot of detective work, not a whole lot of going around and talk to someone to figure this out or that out. Roberto does have a friend named God, who's like this sort of vagrant, I guess. It lives in like this little shack. And then he has a friend called the Professor, who is homeless, but I guess he's like super smart. They kind of help out with the case, but they more so just have advice for what he should do. We also get several shots, kind of feel like dreams. There's like this echoey, angry voice of like, I've always wanted a boy. And there's like punching and slapping sounds as we enter this padded room in an asylum. And like, don't cry when I hit you. But the way it's lit, it's very stylish. I don't know if it's this cut or what, but there are some editing issues. One, the audio isn't that great. It was kind of hard to understand. The audio was a little bit fuzzy. I know some people, this way I always get 4K. But also just some of the editing, because in the beginning, Roberto tells his wife, Nina, played by Farmer, what happened and what's going on. Their maid, Amelia, is laying in bed near them and she can hear. She wants to turn him in because now the unidentified man has been killed. It's been in the paper. But she's eventually killed. Of course, she doesn't get to tell anybody. And the way she's killed, she's sitting in a park because she got through to someone on the phone and was told, meet here at the park. And there's kids playing. There's a couple making out. It's daytime. And then all of a sudden she looks, kids are gone from the playground. She looks at the couple and literally they're there. And then next frame, they've disappeared. Then she starts walking around and it just becomes nighttime. But the way it gets kind of stylish is when it shows her like panicking and trying to run away, there's this anxious, upbeat music. But when it shows the killer's POV behind her, there's no music. It keeps going back and forth. I thought that was interesting. I also like the shot of when she meets this brick wall on the other side. There's the couple that were kissing, and she's screaming for help. They're saying she's fine, but when it shows their view, it's like this upward shot of the top of the wall, kind of like the balcony, and we just hear her voice. We don't see her, we just hear her. And it kind of reminded me of when we finally see the head witch, whose name I always forget, in Suspiria, how she's obscured by that curtain, but we hear her voice talking. It kind of reminded me of that. I like how that was done. But of course, she's killed. And the one twist I'll reveal before I get to spoilers, because it is fairly early on, is we see the guy that Roberto killed in the theater in the beginning. He's still alive. And through POV, we see him talking to, assumably, the killer. And we see he has a bloody, retractable switchblade. He says no one was supposed to get hurt, but you went and killed that woman in the park. This wasn't supposed to happen. And this movie, it's not particularly brutal or bloody. You know, it's definitely not a tenebrae. But the killer picks up, you know, like a candlestick or something really heavy, and through POV hits it off the guy's face. And I mean, it literally looks like he hits it so hard it bounces off his face. And just with the sound effects, it's very impactful. Which then, you know, through his POV, we see it coming down on him. But I also like the shot of the killer's POV when he spits blood all over the screen. So, I guess with the, so now it's like the guy's still alive. What is going on here? But yeah, I guess I'll get to spoilers. If you can find this, it's definitely worth checking out. Because even though I didn't talk about it, this scene where this character gets killed, I guess it doesn't matter because I didn't say who it was. But, I mean, knife to the face. And actually, I'll say, well, there's a very long, quiet scene before it that really builds the suspense. But then it's like, out of nowhere, she walks right up to the screen, knife to the face. She falls backwards, and we see from here up, as she's on her back, going down the stairs. So, her head's going up, like, bump, 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 bump. Camera's on her the whole time. And then we just see the drop of a knife. And I mean, it's like shiny and everything else out of focus. I don't know how we got the shot. And then it's like zoom in on her face, but it landed on her chest. Very stylish. Looks great. Yeah, the story in the script is not as strong as other Argento films, but the style is definitely there. And it definitely reminds us how and why Argento is as great as he is, and how he is like the Italian Hitchcock. Because the whole sequence leading up to that kill was probably my favorite sequence. It was definitely the most suspenseful and realistically scary. If you've seen it, you know what I mean. See, I don't know how available this is. Like I said, I got mine off eBay. Don't watch it on YouTube. Buy the physical copy. You know, be a collector. Buy a physical copy. But I could definitely recommend it. Again, as far as Argento goes, I mean, I would put Crystal Plumage over this, because that's probably still my favorite Argento Gialli. Again, just Gialli, so I'm not counting Suspiria, Inferno. I put Crystal Plumage, Deep Red, Tenebrae, Opera. I put those above this. Phenomena, I'd probably say is tied. I like both for different reasons. I still have to see Trauma and Stendhal Syndrome. It, I like it more than The Card Player. Sleepless, I really enjoyed. I'm not sure which one I like more, but this has that early 70s, just Argento style. It's leading up to what we would see in a Suspiria. More stylish than Crystal Plumage. But yeah, definitely recommend it. Check it out if you can find it. But with that, I'm going to get into spoilers, so. So after the maid is killed, Nina opts to go stay somewhere else. She's too freaked out to stay with him while he's being stalked. There's also kind of a running gag where he beat up the mailman because he was wearing, the black trench coat. It was pouring rain. He couldn't really make out who he was. So he beat the hell out of the mailman. So every time the guy comes around, he's like, he has his club and he's on edge. Kind of a running gag. Then there's just quirky scenes like Roberto, God, and Professor are talking about everything that's going on at like a coffin expo. And just one of those odd scenes, settings, and things to do that you see in Gialli. But while the PI is doing some investigations, he goes to this asylum. He finds out there was this patient who was really psychotic, but then when his father died, the symptoms stopped completely, and he was released. Then he's on the subway, very long scene on a subway. And he's got his eye on someone, we can't see who it is. Gets off the subway, another long scene of him following this unseen person to the station. But we do get this cool Argento Lynchian kind of scene where it's all black, but we just see this blue vial and a syringe. He goes into a bathroom stall and he's hit in the head and then put in the stall, and he gets the needle in the chest, and that's as he's dying, he says, "I knew it was you," but then he dies. So what else was it? Just double checking my notes. So after that, when Nina leaves, her cousin, was it Dahlia or Delilah? Dahlia decides to stay with him, and that's who this is. They start having an affair, and at one point he even wants to leave Nina for her. But while he's doing a recording session with his band, she tries to call him. She's getting freaked out, and this is that long sequence that I think is the most suspenseful, because the lights go out, she's walking through the house, it's dead quiet, no music. At one point she even, this goes on for feels like 10 or more minutes of her just walking through this dead silent house. At one point she hides in like a closet, or like a, what's that called, the big ass closet with the two doors, but it's like a dresser. Anyway, but it's like in the wall. She hides in one, and we hear someone like rummaging and glass breaking, and that's pretty scary when you hear it from a distance, but in the same house. also when she sees things, like like a door kind of moving or like a shadow, there's no music sting or zoom. It just cuts back to her looking scared. That's how you build suspense. And then finally, like I said, she gets the knife to the face. We just get that shot from here up of, with the cut and her just going like bum, 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 down all the stairs. And then when she dies, she's the one that they cut the eyeball out of, and they want to photograph that final thing it saw before it died. But the photo they get, look, there's 4 flies. And I don't think they say gray velvet, but they do say it looks like 4 flies, maybe because it, if you remember what like a microfiche looks like, it kind of looks like that, or like the old school like elementary school projectors, like that kind of light. That's what it looks like. So maybe it looks like it's on gray velvet. Even considering what you find out it means to the killer's not wearing gray velvet, so. But that night, he finally gets a pistol, and he's gonna lock himself in, and eventually, uh, God calls him, but then the line is cut, and Nina comes home. We thought after Dahlia was killed, because she kind of blows off the inspector or whoever, is she's like, yeah, just talk to my husband. She leaves with whoever. But now she shows up. Well, Wikipedia says the technician says the image looks like 4 flies on gray velvet. All I heard was looks like 4 flies. So maybe it's in a longer cut or a different cut, but this says full and uncut. I don't know. So then while he's home alone after the line gets cut, Nina comes home, and he tells her to take her car and leave, for her safety, but then he notices her necklace, which is this big pendant that has a fly in it. So then we do get this cool scene where it's all black, and it's like, it shows the necklace going like this, and it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, as if it was swinging in front of Dahlia's face. And so that's when he realizes, it was you. And again, like when the killer bludgeons that one guy to death, when Roberto slaps a Mimsy Farmer, it looks realistic. It's pretty intense slapping, especially after how many Gialli I've seen with really bad slap fights. This was a pretty impactful slap, and he gives her a couple. But she gets a hold of his pistol, and the whole time she has the gun on him, sometimes it feels like she's going over the top. Like she'll start laughing and like she'll get all serious again. But at the same time, it's like she's doing a really good job at acting like she's going through a psychotic break. It's like just when she feels like she's going over the top, she brings it back down to believable. And even though she does come out and say her father raised her as a boy, would beat her if she cried, or she says she never reacted like a man when she was beat, implying she got beat more. It was put in the asylum. She was told she was crazy. She was put in the asylum. Her mother died while she was in there. Her father died while she was in there. So she could never get revenge on him. And apparently she said, either you look like him or you act like him or both. So that's why the whole idea was to try to drive him crazy. was to have him think he killed this guy, and then you'll have this stalker with proof of the murder and threats and killing people around him, trying to drive him insane the way her father made her feel. And she shoots him a couple times, but then God came in, knowing that the line was probably cut on purpose. She flees, and then we get another super stylish, but edited kind of weird. She's fleeing in the car. This garbage truck pulls out in front of her, and then it's like it shows her like react, but then in slow motion, we get like the fender like hit it, and we see it start to like crumple the car, and we see her reaction. It's super slow mo. So then it cuts back to the car, getting more crumpled, until eventually when he gets to the windshield, we just see the whole screen go like the whole thing is like spiderwebbed and cracked and crystallized. Then it explodes, reveals Mimsy Farmer again. And also, even though it's not said, we get that, okay, the dreams about the decapitation was a premonition, but not for him, for Nina, because she eventually is decapitated. I think because she looks like she's about to scream during the slow-mo, but then like right when she finally does, well, it's like right where she is, gets right up close to the garbage truck, and then we just see her head rolling on the street, and then we just get the full view of garbage truck and car, and the car explodes. So I don't know if there was more to that, how the head got from here to the screen. Again, it's one of those weird jump cuts, like the couple kissing in the park, and then how it literally looks like they vanish in thin air. And then not only because it's an Italian film, but it's an Argento film, so right after it explodes, end credits. Now, I didn't see the killer being Nina. I probably could have. I mean, the evidence is there looking back. I mean, when we get those stylish shots of going in the padded room with the voiceover, like, I've always wanted a boy. Why, why can't you be my son? Or, I wanted a boy, not you. It sounds pretty obvious. I thought it was going to be more of the dad had a boy, but I thought he was kind of a sissy, like a John Wayne Gacy type thing. But no, it makes obvious sense now. And that's kind of what a good Giallo can do, is when you look back at the hints, it makes perfect sense, but you still didn't see it coming. That's a good twist. But yeah, this movie's got great style. Like I said, the script is pretty weak. The story, I mean, it's different. Like I said, it's more like Cape Fear for the most part, because it's a PI just kind of doing a little bit of sleuthing, not too much, and not our main character or characters. Yeah, I'm not sure what else to say. I love the style. Great Argento. He knows how to make a death scene either really brutal and effective, or very theatrical, cinematic. And yeah, definitely worth the find on eBay. Definitely worth picking up too. I waited years to see this because it was so hard to find, but I'm glad I have it. And yeah, this is why I love 70s Argento. It's not a great movie. It's not one of his greats, but compared to some other more modern stuff I've seen, yeah, it's a masterpiece. But yeah, I still have to do Cat and Nine Tails, then I can judge all three of the Animal trilogy. As of right now, yeah, it's very below Crystal Plumage. It has more style, but that was a much better story. But yeah, Four Flies on Grey Velvet. Stay tuned for more Argento. Uh, I will be getting more Giallo this week, but in the near future, once they're done, keep an eye out for more Argento films. But I now have 75 Giallo reviews, actual Giallo, not ones that people think are Giallo, like Pieces or Bloody Moon or Dress to Kill or Don't Look Now or, you know, any other ones like that, and they're actually not Giallo. Like 75 actual Giallo reviews. I think this is 113 Italian films I've done overall. So yeah, stay tuned for more, and thank you for watching.